You're listening to the Mid-Career GPS podcast, episode 102. You've heard the expression, people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. Well, when your boss is a micromanager, it is understandable why you may leave. But what if there is a part of this that is really more about your thoughts on that entire professional relationship? See, there are reasons behind micromanaging, and in some cases, they aren't all that bad. So in today's episode, I'm going to break down for you the pros and the cons behind why someone may feel a need to micromanage. I'll also share with you a few strategies on how to have a better conversation with them. And lastly, we'll talk about how to make sure you don't fall into those traps and become one in your leadership role. This is the Mid-Career GPS podcast, and I'm your host, John Nerrell. I help mid-career professionals who are feeling undervalued and underutilized show up to find a job they love or love the job they have using my proven 4-step formula. It's time to start building your mid-career GPS. So let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Before I get into today's topic, I want to tell you about a fantastic webinar I am co-facilitating with two of my colleagues on Tuesday, June 14th at noon Eastern. I'm partnering with Maria Rosati, the CEO of Eminence Communications, and Robin Merrill, the author of the award-winning book, Involuntary Exit, to bring you a webinar that we are calling, How Do You Stand Out in an Interview? Right now, we know it's an employee's market, but what we also know is that companies are being more selective and taking more time when it comes to identifying and making that offer to their ideal candidate. So what we're doing is we're hosting this webinar that we want to talk to you a little bit more about how to navigate this entire interview process until you get the offer. So that means navigating what happens in the first, second, third round, or even later rounds during the whole interview process. We'll talk about how you can build a better relationship with the hiring manager and interviewers so you can move on to the next round. We'll talk about how you can control the narrative and why that is vital in the interview process. And we'll also talk about how to identify certain clues that will tell you how well you're doing in the interview, as well as how to leverage your talents and expertise differently when you go in to interview for that next job you really, really want. Now, you can sign up for this webinar by visiting johnnerrell.com/webinar. You'll see the link there to register. Again, it's on Tuesday, June 14th at noon Eastern. You will also see posts from myself, Maria Rosati, and Robin Merrill this entire week on LinkedIn. So if you're not connected with all three of us, certainly go ahead and follow us. But we look forward to seeing you at the webinar and really having this opportunity to help you figure out how to navigate your next interview. So visit johnnerrell.com/webinar for more information. Okay, on to today's topic. So this one seems to be coming up a lot lately. People are trying to figure out whatever is next, and it is understandable that if you don't feel like you fit with your job, your values don't align with that of the company, or you're working for someone who you don't believe truly has your back or is making your work life miserable, you're going to want to go and look for another type of job. But when we talk about micromanaging, I want us to get very specific and clear on who they are and what they do. So as many of you know, I love a good definition. So I went to Indeed.com. And Indeed says that a micromanager, and I quote, is a manager who closely observes the work of their team members. They often have good intentions and micromanage to improve the performance of everyone on the team. However, Their behavioral tendencies can impact their team's ability to develop their own strong leadership behaviors. So it begs the question, how do you know when you are working for a micromanager? You kind of know, right? You kind of know when someone is telling you things that you feel like they're watching your every move. They're breathing down your neck. They want to make sure you are including them in on everything that you're doing so they are not left out of the loop. So again, looking at Indeed, I found this other article that was all about the signs of a micromanager. And so here were some of the common signs that Indeed indicated that are demonstrated by a micromanager. Now, as I read you this list, I want you to see how many of these you can relate to or identify based on your current boss or one that you had whom you often refer to as a micromanager. So, for example, they don't often delegate work. They ask for frequent project or task updates, and they want overly detailed or explicit reports. They never want to be left out of anything. They insist on documenting all of the work processes. They focus on unimportant details versus the big picture. They suggest unrealistic deadlines. So maybe they are expecting you to work overtime on the weekends or turn around things rather quickly. They prefer to be CC'd on all emails related to the project. They get irritated when decisions are made without their input. They are continually monitoring their team members and in some cases redoing their work. And this is a big one. Listen carefully to this one. They feel that to do something right, they need to do it themselves. That sound familiar? Do you know someone who has done that in your organization, on your team, or to you specifically? But I want to call out here that there are specific reasons why people micromanage. And what I have seen in my experience is that this often stems from a lack of control. A micromanager believes that the more control they have over the situation, the better it's going to be. So document, copy them on emails, keep them informed. Daily meetings where you are just kind of feel like you are rehashing anything and everything, and you're not moving stuff forward. You're just really kind of reporting out on stuff. So control is a big thing here. The other one is about fear. And the fear here comes from that they're setting high expectations that they want to do good. And they want to make sure they're doing good so the people above them know they're doing an exceptional job. It's really a dynamic that is very, very toxic. So think about it. If the micromanager is putting more pressure on you, the better work you're going to do. I don't know. I'm someone who, when I start thinking about how much pressure I'm going to put on myself, I usually don't do a good job with it. I have to give myself a little space and grace and some flexibility to get the quality work done that I need to get done. And yes, while I tend to work pretty well under a deadline, I also give myself enough time, right? And I know I've worked better when I've been given enough time to just get those things done. There's nothing wrong with having a high expectation for quality. When that high expectation is not agreed upon, and it's a demand that they're trying to move up to their boss to make themselves look better, we got an issue. The other thing about micromanaging is that, honestly, they don't trust you. They don't trust you to do the work you are expected to do. But trust needs to be earned. Trust is proven. And I want to call this out specifically because let's say you are new to a team you are new to working with someone or reporting to someone, and they say to you, when you send an email, I want to be copied on it. That is not micromanaging. That is them supporting you to ensure that your communication is accurate and clear and detailed enough, especially if you're in a situation where you are emailing an internal partner or an external client. So just because somebody says to you, I want to be copied on that email, doesn't mean they're micromanaging you, unless they continually do it over and over and over again when you have proven that you are more than capable of communicating effectively in those situations. This is where we have to be careful about drawing that line. I have had some conversations where people have said to me, oh, I just started working for this person and they want me to copy on everything and they want me to detail and describe everything that I'm doing. And I'm getting really annoyed because I've been on the job for a week and all they're doing is micromanaging me. And I'm like, really? Like, how well do they know you? They're like, we just started working together. So you're going to fault them for wanting to make sure you're doing a good job? I don't think of that as micromanaging. I think of that as a quality control, right? You're building a relationship. Let me make sure I'm supporting you. Now, if you've been there for 6 months or a year and they're continually asking to be copied on those emails, then we got another issue. I want you to look at these through a lens by asking yourself this question: how bad are these things really? Because your situation is the one that you eat, live, breathe, and sleep with every single day. If you're getting an email from your boss and you see that email pop up and you go, oh, good Lord, what do they want now? Yeah, they might be micromanaging you. You may not be really, really happy with them right now. But the other question is, are they really happy with you also? Are there performance issues that in some cases are warranting some of these behaviors? That's what we have to take a look at as well. If you are at fault for doing things that are less than high quality, don't fault your boss for doing their job and checking in a little bit more to make sure you're doing your work effectively. So, yes, there are extremes here. We need to bring that pendulum back into the middle a little bit to really understand what exactly is going on. And yes, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're responsible, you do good work, you expect to be trusted. You want to be trusted. That can only happen after you have proven yourself to be worthy of their trust. So, how do you deal with a relationship that, for all intents and purposes, is a little unhealthy, is a little toxic, and you're like, I don't want to leave this job, but I got to find a way to make this relationship better? Well, here's a couple of suggestions to help you show up a little more energetically and differently to build this relationship. First thing is to have an intentional conversation with them. Now, in my book, Show Up: 6 Strategies to Lead a More Energetic and Impactful Career, as well as my book, Your Mid-Career GPS: 4 Steps to Figure Out What's Next, I detail 6 specific strategies to help you show up in your career. The H stands for having intentional conversations. And the goal of having an intentional conversation is to move the relationship forward by getting the information that you need that isn't necessarily the information you want. So when you're dealing with a micromanager, I want you to think very specifically about what it is that you need and to find a way to communicate that. It might sound something like this. Manager Ethel, Um, I tend to default to names that I typically associate with older people or older relatives. So if anybody's listening and their name is Ethel or they have a kid named Ethel, please know there's no disrespect in that. So Manager Ethel, over the last couple of months, I have copied you on emails. I've kept you informed on everything. And I'm really curious from you, when you go to look at all of that work, how good of a job am I doing for you? And when you ask that question, you're asking because you're needing some information. So you ask the question and you hold the space. And Manager Ethel may say something like, you're doing a good job. Keep up the good work and everything. And you might be a little surprised at the lack of detail or specificity you might get in their answer. And so you may turn around and then say something like, do you still want me? So given that you're happy with the work that I'm doing, do you still want me to CC you on all those emails? And they may say yes, or they may say no. And they say, okay. And you ask another question like, well, how much do you want me to continue to keep you informed on all of these processes and work tasks that I'm doing? You then have to figure out what you are going to ask for. Are you going to ask to stop doing those things? Maybe do a weekly readout when you have a check-in meeting with them, or something else. The goal here is that you are communicating their behavior, ensuring that you are still doing quality work, and waiting to see if that is still needed. And I've known cases where people have said, it just feels like a lot. And I'm wondering if you're able to keep up with all of those emails. And maybe you have somebody that says, that's my responsibility. Don't worry about that. Your goal here is to find a compromise. Is there a way you can build this relationship with your micromanager that they're able to let off the gas or, loosen the reins a little bit so you don't feel like you have to continually keep reporting? Be clear about what it is that you need, and be prepared that what you need or what you want in this case, which might be for them to totally stop breathing down your neck and everything like that, they may or may not give that to you. And that's where you have to decide whether or not that compromise is viable or worth it to you. And as you're having this conversation, I want to offer that in the Show Up 6 strategies, you look at the S. The S is for setting ground rules. Listen to what is important for them in this conversation so they know they're delivering a quality work product. There's a reason why they want you to CC them on everything. There is a reason why they want you to keep them in the loop. Set the ground rule. What is it that they need, and how can you ensure you're going to get that to them? I remember working with an executive. She in no way, shape, or form was a micromanager, but one of the things that was so successful in our work was that I was really clear from her what good work looked like. And I remember asking her one day, what was the one thing I could do that would really tick her off and make her really angry at me? Imagine asking somebody that, like, ask a micromanager that question, right? What's the one thing I could do that would make you really angry or upset with me? Ooh, hold space on that one. See what comes back. I asked this of my executive, and she said to me, never send me into a meeting with the other executives withholding information that I should know about before going in there. Okay, ground rule set. I'm never going to let that happen to you. We're good. Setting ground rules is about making agreements with you and somebody else so you know how to play. I say all the time that when you set ground rules, you know how to play. You're making agreements about what that working relationship looks like. So knowing you may not go from all or nothing, all to then nothing, maybe it's something like, would you be okay if at the end of every week, I send you a detailed email about everything I did and kept you in the loop on everything so I don't have to email you every single time that happens? And they might agree to something like that. In your job, you are there to solve a particular problem. You are not there to cause problems. Now, I want to be clear. You are not to be harassed. You are not to be victimized. You are not to be made to go cry in the bathroom every single day or cry at your desk at home or whatever that is. Those are situations completely different from this. But you are there to help that manager, that boss, that leader, that organization solve a particular problem based on your skill set and expertise. How do you solve the problem? And in solving that problem, you're partnering with your leadership on that. Remember, they are there to solve a problem as well. So the more you can help them, the more you can come from that place of value and service, the better off you are in building that relationship. One of the other things you can do in working with a micromanager is see if there is a way for you to anticipate their next move. Now, remember, this is all about trust, but if you can get them what they need and even get them what they need ahead of time, you're building that relationship with them. Because if we go back to that list of the reasons why people micromanage, if one of their reasons is about fear, that they're going to be caught without having everything that they need, you're just trying to help them. You're just trying to help them in this. So be curious about what they want to know. And in that curiosity, remember that leadership is challenging, but so is followership. So if you are not in a leadership role and you are following someone else's lead, your work is challenging as well. So if you can't make the situation better, if you have tried these things and you're like, I just can't make the situation better, you might ask to relocate to work under a different boss, or you may decide to leave. It is up to you to figure out whatever is best for you in your career. Remember, you are 100% responsible for your career path and where it is taking you. So lastly, how do you avoid these things so you don't become that micromanager from hell? Well, it's easy. It's probably the easiest thing we're going to talk about today. Don't do it. Don't do it. In your leadership journey, you are a byproduct of everything that you believe to be important and good, as well as the things that are negative and toxic you're trying to avoid. You show up as the leader you want to be because of those totality of your experiences. You are showing up in a way that you believe is best for you and your team. Check in with your team members. Ask them what's working. Ask them what's not working. Ask them if they have an idea to help make things better. If your team members, if you're part of a larger team, more than likely, they're all talking about you behind your back. That's about your professional brand, right? So if they're all talking and having these conversations, and you say to them, what can we do to make this better? What would make the team be more efficient, more effective, more cohesive? And they offer a suggestion, see if it's viable. See if it's something you could actually do. Keep them engaged. Look, just because you ask your team members for what they want doesn't mean you have to give it to them. I was doing a training last week, right? And we're having a conversation around, setting these ground rules, having these intentional conversations. And I said to them, look, Just because you ask for something doesn't mean your boss has to give it to you. If you walked into your boss and you said, I want you to double my salary, they're going to go, no. Just because you ask for it doesn't mean you get what you want. If you propose something that is reasonable, it is grounded in evidence, it is backed up with support, and is something that could be a change they could be on board with, you have a chance. But you get to make a choice. Do you want to be that micromanager or not? Just as much as you get to make the choice, do you want to have a better working relationship with your boss who is micromanaging you or not? It is entirely up to you. There is no judgment in this. You get to decide whatever is best for you. But I'm going to close this episode out with this. If your default is to always run from the situation, I'm not going to face it. I'm not going to deal with it. I don't want the stress. I'm just going to go get another job and I'm going to leave. No, you can absolutely do that. And while you may find a fantastic new advancement opportunity for you in a new organization, in a new role with better compensation, you may very well still run into the same problem or situation. You have an opportunity to learn something by having a better and more intentional conversation with your boss. So what would it look like for you to approach your boss who might be a micromanager and have that intentional conversation to work at setting one ground rule? Because you will learn from that experience. And when you move into that leadership role or you advance into another leadership role, you will take that experience with you and you will learn from it. And that's one of the huge parts of this podcast. We are here just to learn and experience and figure out whatever is next on your career journey. My friends, I hope this was helpful for you today. Thank you for spending some time with me. Don't forget to visit johnneral.com/webinar to join me, Maria Rosati, and Robin Merrill June 14th at noon Eastern for our webinar on interviewing. We look forward to helping you and serving you. And until next time, my friends, remember this. We build our mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how we show up matters. Until next time, make it a great rest of your day. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to miss an episode, follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you usually listen. And I'd appreciate it if you would leave a rating and review. Visit johnneral.com to download your free copy of the 55-minute career transition jumpstart to help you start building your mid-career GPS. And don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on social at John Neral Coaching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.